General, if you were advising the president now, what would you be saying?
Well, first, I'd be waiting to see if this is all that Iran is going to send toward U.S. bases in the region. The strike on the base outside Doha, Qatar, Al Udeid Air Base, which is where the Central Command Forward Headquarters, that seems to have been telegraphed well in advance. There's very substantial air defense. Again, if all those are knocked down, terrific. That was just a token of retaliation. And then the attack on the base that is in northern Iraq, outside Erbil. Again, we'll see what happens there as well. So first, is this the totality of the Iranian response? If so, and they're all knocked down, there are no casualties to American or other forces, then all well. And now you can pursue to seek a ceasefire with Iran, pursuant to negotiations, quite an ultimatum, frankly, that Iran will give up its entire nuclear program and allow the International Atomic Energy Agency to oversee the dismantlement of that program and inspect wherever and whenever they choose to.
And what if there are American casualties? Does that demand a bigger response?
I think it does. And again, I think that Iran chose carefully in this case, touch wood, that this would allow them to say that they have retaliated against the headquarters of the U.S. force in the region. That headquarters very likely not fully manned, to put it mildly, given the expectation of this kind of response. And that should be it for them. But if there are casualties, then you're going to see another round of retaliation from the United States.
Why should Iran submit to international inspection when Israel doesn't?
Because they're in a very, very weak position. They are not trusted. They cannot be allowed to have nuclear weapons. People may argue that they won't commit suicide. Frankly, there have been plenty of folks that have committed suicide from their ranks and other ranks of extremists in the region.
And what do you say to those who say, look, this is a sovereign nation and it needs to be respected, not pushed around by, you know, the imperial power America?
I'd say that this, quote, sovereign nation has been the biggest supporter of terrorism, not just in the Middle East, but arguably in the world.
I mean, you know what the other side of that argument is, don't you? I mean, and the Iranians make it in terms of US foreign policy and the impact on the wider world and the behavior of Israel with regards to its neighbors. I mean, down this route, there only seems to be more conflict.
I disagree. Down this route, there's going to be Iranian capitulation, or certainly conflict will continue, and they're going to come out on the short end of it, as they already are. Look, Iran has already had its two most important proxies, Lebanese Hezbollah and Hamas, dramatically degraded. They've lost their ally in Syria with the overthrow of the murderous Bashar al-Assad regime. The Houthis aren't as strong as they were, and the Iraqi Shia militia are also seeming to take a low-profile approach to this. And they are dramatically diminished as well. Their nuclear program has sustained enormous damage. At the very least, there could be, to be sure, some stockpiles of high-enriched uranium or centrifuges that were taken out of these facilities before they were so severely damaged, but we'll determine that in the weeks that lie ahead. Their missile stocks are dramatically depleted, and of course, the ability to make more of those and to craft more missile launchers also heavily degraded. They're in a very, very weak position, arguably the weakest they have been since the previous supreme leader took a drink from the so-called poison chalice, agreeing to conditions that ended the Iran-Iraq war.
But isn't the lesson of Iraq that if you destabilize a regime without any plan for what happens afterwards, if there's no political culture in a country to take up the vacuum, you might end up with something worse than you had before?
Well, certainly the lesson of Iraq is that you should plan for the day after much better than we did, having been a two-star general and commander of the 101st Airborne Division during the fight to Baghdad and then the subsequent first year there. And also don't make mistakes like firing the entire army without a plan for it and the political party that we needed to help run a country that we didn't fully understand, at least the bureaucratic elements of that, not the leaders. There are many lessons from Iraq. They don't necessarily apply here. I don't think that there are opposition forces in Iran that have sufficient manpower, leadership, and weapons to overthrow the regime. And I tend to doubt that there will be someone from within the regime that will take down the regime leadership. And in fact, they do need to be careful, though, that the elements in the country, for example, the Iranian Kurds, the Iranian Turks, the Azeris, the Baluchis, might seek union with their relatives outside the country. But again, for the time being, I think if they agreed to stop right now, I think they could remain in control of the country. And we're not on the ground out to topple that particular regime. But it's really up to them. I think the supreme leader, again, needs to follow the example of his predecessor and drink from that poison chalice.
If, as seems likely, Iran has managed to get its enriched uranium out of those premises before they were bombed, doesn't there remain the risk, whoever is in charge of that country eventually, of a dirty bomb or of uranium and centrifuges protected to be able to get to a nuclear weapon quite quickly?
Well, I think quite quickly at this point in time is probably out of the question. Beyond that, I think that we will end up knowing what has happened, whether that highly enriched uranium that was stockpiled at a couple of different locations and the advanced centrifuges in particular have been destroyed or not. That's the job of intelligence. We've seen how extraordinarily impressively Israel and Mossad have penetrated the country. And obviously the U.S. has considerable means of determining what has happened as well. And at the end of the day, I don't think that is going to be left. That will be one of the elements of an agreement that will be insisted upon by the United States. And frankly, if they don't agree to that, Israel can continue to degrade elements of the regime that threaten the region virtually at will, given the real destruction of any meaningful strategic air and ballistic missile defenses in Iran.
And what do you make of Israel's targeting of its operations? It seems to be hitting targets close to civilian facilities, universities. It's hitting targets in the center of Tehran now. Is it clear what they're trying to do?
I think it is. I think they have been, frankly, incredibly impressive in their targeting, taking out probably now that, approaching 20 nuclear scientists quite precisely, taking out centers of research, again, quite precisely, taking out military and regime leaders very precisely, and now expanding the target list to go after military headquarters, air bases, missile launchers and stockpiles and so forth. I think they've done an incredible job in that regard.
Apparently there are no casualties on the attack in Qatar. So do you think this can now end peacefully?
Well, we haven't heard what happened in the attack on the base outside Erbil in northern Iraq. And so pending that, if there are no casualties there as well, then this clearly, if this is it, this was the token Iranian response, well telegraphed, it appears, and impressively defended against. And now we can shift to the diplomatic realm, which again, instead of negotiations, really should be a take it or leave it for Iran to give up its nuclear program, all of it, and to end it, and to allow the IAEA full inspection of the dismantlement of that program.